Welcome to the XRP podcast with your host, Andrew, the XRP Maximalist. If you'd like to join me or contribute to the podcast, you can find me on Twitter at XRP Podcast with 2 Ps. This is where you can connect with me directly with suggestions, ideas, or any form of constructive inquiry. The XRP podcast this week is featuring a report from the United Kingdom House of Lords. This report comes from the Economic Affairs Committee and is the third report of session 2021 to 2022. Within the report, the Committee of Economic Affairs discusses the use cases, drawbacks, and benefits of the implementation of a central bank digital currency on both a retail level and on the international playing field. The information found within this report, I believe, is valuable due to the use case which XRP was created for: real-time, near-instant cross-border settlements as an alternative to SWIFT money transfers, along with the efforts Ripple is currently undertaking in the United Kingdom as part of the Digital Pound Foundation, and their efforts in other countries as well in the development and implementation of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Though this report is coming from the United Kingdom, the problems and benefits highlighted throughout can be similarly identified in other nations which are exploring this technology. Though the House of Lords does go at length to fully detail the current issues implementing global bridge currencies like XRP from being implemented as the backbone for the global financial sector, through time and the cumulative efforts of these many nations and enterprises which are backing blockchain technology, many, if not all, of these issues will be resolved. We must not forget the fact that the World Economic Forum in their September 2015 report projected that by 2027, that 10% of the world's global domestic product will be tokenized by 2027. Just 5 short years from now. And for reference, in 2020, the world's global GDP, or global domestic product, amounted to about 85 trillion US dollars. So that would be about 8.5 trillion US dollars being tokenized. And by 2024, at least half of the world's population is expected to use digital wallets for transactions that will be valued at more than $9 trillion annually. I implore all listeners to look long-term and create positions to elevate themselves along with the rise of blockchain technology and XRP. This is software that has the potential to drastically change our lives. This is an audio recording of the full report originally published January 13th, 2022. This is meant to be consumed by any individuals who find this information useful or educational, but wish to digest it in an alternative format that fits more conveniently with their busy schedules. If you'd like to read the report for yourself, as always, you may find it linked below. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. Central bank digital currencies, a solution in search of a problem? Summary: Central bank digital currencies. The Bank of England and Her Majesty's Treasury have created a joint task force to explore the potential of a retail central bank digital currency, CBDC. A retail CBDC is different to privately issued cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin. Instead, it would be a form of electric money issued by the Bank of England that could be used by households and businesses to make everyday payments, in essence, a digital banknote. Over 90 central banks are exploring CBDCs. In developed countries, there are 2 common motivations. First, central banks are concerned that big tech companies such as Meta or Facebook could issue their own digital currencies to the users of their vast networks, enabling them to accrue excessive market power. Second, many central banks are concerned by the decline in the use of physical cash, which some have said anchors public confidence in the monetary system. However, the introduction of a United Kingdom central bank digital currency would have far-reaching consequences for households, businesses, and the monetary system for decades to come, and may pose significant risks depending on how it is designed. These risks include state surveillance of people's spending choices, financial instability as people convert bank deposits to central bank digital currencies during periods of economic stress, an increase in central bank power without sufficient scrutiny, and the creation of a centralized point of failure that would be a target for hostile nation state or criminal actors. Overall conclusion. We have yet to hear a convincing case for why the United Kingdom needs a retail CBDC. While a central bank digital currency may provide some advantages, it could present significant challenges for financial stability and the protection of privacy. The Joint Task Force should answer the following questions before deciding on whether to proceed. To what problem is a central bank digital currency the answer? Question 2. What is the precise threat posed by privately issued digital currencies? What is it that a CBDC could do to offset any threat, and what is the role of regulation? Question 3. How can a CBDC be a competitive payments option without causing a level of banking sector disintermediation that would have negative consequences for credit allocation and financial stability? Question 4. What additional monetary policy options would a CBDC provide to the current Bank of England, and would these be proportionate to the bank's current mandate for monetary and financial stability? Question 5. How can a central bank digital currency ensure strong privacy safeguards while also meeting financial compliance rules? Which organizations will be able to access sensitive CBDC payments data, and for what purpose will that data be used? Question 6. What are the main international and national security risks that arise from a CBDC, and how can these be managed? How can a CBDC be made secure against current and future threats without sacrificing usability? We recognize that consumer payments preferences, technological developments, and the choices of other countries may enhance the case for a UK CBDC in the future. The long lead times involved in scoping and developing a CBDC means that the Joint Task Force should continue to assess the rationale and technology in preparation for such a measure being needed in the future. Parliamentary scrutiny should be an essential part of assessing the case for a CBDC, and if the government decides to proceed, Parliament should have the opportunity to vote on any final decision along with the governance arrangements for any such system. During the passage of primary legislation, the government should set out the costs of introducing and operating any design that is proposed. Risk of private money creation. The market for stablecoins and other crypto assets is growing quickly, but these digital assets are unregulated and are increasingly seen as a risk to financial stability. Central banks are concerned that big tech companies could use the same technology to issue their own digital currencies, which could be popular enough to compete with central banks and their control of monetary systems. While we agree this is a risk, the introduction of a CBDC may not be a necessary or complete response. Private entities of a size that can compete with the existing payment systems can and should be regulated. While the number of banknotes in circulation has continued to rise in the UK, most payments that were made in cash are now made via debit and credit cards. This trend is likely to have accelerated because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, cash continues to be widely accepted in the United Kingdom, and it is not obvious that the properties of CBDCs would satisfy the demand for cash, which is often valued for its physical properties and the privacy that it can provide. We note that the Bank of England has said that it will continue to issue cash on demand and that the public need for money without default risk is covered for most savers by the availability of cash and deposit protection. If a central bank digital currency is introduced, it is inevitable that some people will transfer money out of their bank accounts and into CBDC wallets. This process is known as disintermediation, but it is unclear how much might take place, and it will ultimately depend on how a CBDC is designed. Without safeguards such as limits on the amount of CBDCs an individual can hold, financial instability could be exacerbated during periods of economic stress as people seek to replace bank deposits with CBDCs, which may be perceived as safer. Limits on CBDC holdings or charges on large holdings may reduce the attractiveness of CBDCs to users, which could undermine other objectives such as increasing financial inclusion or crowding out privately issued stablecoins. The Bank of England should conduct further studies to assess what would be the effect on the banking system if not more than 20% of deposits are converted to CBDCs. This would help the bank to better understand what limits or other design choices might be necessary. A CBDC could enable central banks to conduct forms of unconventional monetary policy more easily. While the governor for the Bank of England told us that he did not see CBDCs as a way to implement monetary policy, we note his successors may in fact disagree. Such measures may increase the Bank of England's role and influence in the economy, and any changes to the bank's monetary policy toolkit should be scrutinized carefully. We recommend that the Joint Task Force publishes its assessment of the potential for monetary policy via a CBDC in its 2022 consultation to assist in this scrutiny. To prevent their use in large-scale criminal activity, any central bank digital currency system could not support anonymous transactions in the same way that cash can be spent anonymously. While there are design options that would provide some privacy safeguards, technical specifications alone may be insufficient to counter public concern over the risk of state surveillance. The Bank of England risks being drawn into controversial debates on privacy. The bank has indicated that it favors a private sector-led approach for managing necessary Know Your Customer or KYC checks on CBDC account holders. However, the requirement to provide these checks could reduce the incentives for new companies to provide CBDC account services, which may undermine the objective to spur competition in payments. It is also unclear what kind of digital identification may be needed to ensure payments are made securely and legally. This should be set out. Implications for households and businesses. While the United Kingdom's existing domestic payment system is secure and efficient, a CBDC system could spur innovation and competition in payments, but this would be in addition to those that are already taking place. Increased competition from CBDC technology could lead to a reduction in card fees paid by merchants, which could be passed on to the consumer. However, few other significant potential advantages for United Kingdom consumers were predicted by our witnesses. We recommend that the Joint Task Force include additional representative customer groups on its engagement forum to help it to identify what benefits, if any, a CBDC could provide. Cross-border payments can be expensive and slow. Interoperable cross-border central bank digital currency systems could bypass some of the existing frictions with lower costs. Nevertheless, such a system would still have to comply with oversight frameworks, national laws, and international technical standards, which are a long way from being agreed upon. Cross-border payments are already improving because of innovation and competition in the fintech sector. Furthermore, a great deal of international collaboration is underway, both in the private and public sectors, to improve cross-border payments, which should make them more efficient with or without CBDCs. Should the acceptance of cash decline significantly, a central bank digital currency could be a way to ensure greater financial inclusion, in that it would provide access to digital payment services that are like bank accounts. However, for some, not having a bank account is a choice, and for others, the technological requirements for CBDC transactions may exclude them from accessing it. It is likely that there are more straightforward and targeted ways to support access to financial services than to launch a CBDC. International implications. The global reliance on the US dollar and the SWIFT messaging system, which supports cross-border payments, has enhanced the United States' ability to implement sanctions. For some countries, reducing their reliance on the US dollar and trying to avoid sanctions is a motive behind CBDC development. In the short term, barriers to bypassing the US-dominated international payment system remain formidable. Complex agreements on standards, design, and governance would have to be agreed upon by all countries concerned. However, agreements between small groups of countries could be negotiated more quickly, and it is apparent that there is a political will in certain countries, such as China, to create alternatives to the existing international payment system. This trend could continue to erode the US dollar's sanctions leverage. We recommend that Her Majesty's Treasury's Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation assesses whether similar risks exist for sterling and the euro. There are two main security risks posed by a CBDC. First, individual accounts could be compromised through weaknesses in cybersecurity. Second, the centralized central bank digital currency ledger, which would be a critical piece of national infrastructure, would be a target for attack from hostile state and non-state actors. While no design can guarantee absolute security, any central bank digital currency system will need to be adaptable to emerging security threats and technological change, including fast-developing quantum computing. The United Kingdom is well placed to lead on developing international standards for central bank digital currencies. It would derive most long-term benefit by ensuring global standards and rules on governance, privacy, security, and interoperability are compatible with the national interests of the UK and its allies. Finally, we heard the development of a wholesale CBDC could support the United Kingdom's competitiveness as an international financial center. Wholesale CBDCs, unlike universally available retail central bank digital currencies, currently being examined by the Joint Task Force, would only be used in transactions between financial institutions. While the wholesale operations of the monetary system are already highly efficient, principally through the real-time gross settlement system, RTGS, and there is ongoing improvement work, a wholesale CBDC may help to further enhance efficiency in securities trading and settlement. We recommend that the Joint Task Force consults on whether a wholesale CBDC would have any material advantages over the continued development and widened partnership of the real-time gross settlement system alongside its 2022 CBDC consultation. End of summary. Chapter 1. Introduction. The Bank of England and Her Majesty's Treasury are jointly exploring the potential of a central bank digital currency. A central bank digital currency is different to a cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin, which is privately issued and not backed by any central party. A CBDC would not be a new currency. It would be a form of central bank electric money that could be used by households and businesses to make payments. In essence, it's a digital banknote. It would be the only form of electric money available to the public that is issued by the Bank of England. In a March 2020 discussion paper on the possibility of introducing a UK CBDC, the bank said it would be in addition to physical cash, not a replacement. There are three types of money in the United Kingdom: banknotes, reserves, and bank deposits. Banknotes, cash, and reserves, commercial bank deposits that are held in Bank of England accounts, are central bank money. Bank deposits are commercial money. Currently, around 97% of money in the hands of the public comprises of commercial bank deposits and 3% cash. Commercial bank money, bank deposits, can be easily converted into central bank money by withdrawing cash. At the moment, banknotes are the only form of central bank money to which the public has access. A CBDC would be a new form of central bank money. It would be safe and free of credit risk in the same way as banknotes. The government has not decided on whether to introduce a central bank digital currency. Her Majesty's Treasury and the Bank of England have created a joint task force to explore the risks and opportunities that may follow from the introduction of a retail central bank digital currency, which would be designed to facilitate payments involving households and small or medium businesses. Retail CBDCs differ from wholesale CBDCs, which are designed to facilitate payments between financial institutions. The bank is undertaking separate work to improve wholesale and high-value payments, and it has cooperated with other central banks which are examining wholesale CBDCs. A retail CBDC system can follow an indirect model, also known as hybrid, or a direct model. Under an indirect model, the central bank maintains a central ledger which records CBDC balances and processes payments. But financial institutions, for example, commercial banks, manage customer account services. The Bank of England consulted on this approach in its March 2020 discussion paper. Under a direct model, customer accounts and account management services are all handled by the central bank. But we have heard few central banks which have seen such a model as viable, including the Bank of England. The UK is not alone in exploring the potential of a CBDC. According to the Atlantic Council, around 90 countries are considering introducing their own form of public digital money. 7 countries have launched central bank digital currencies, the first of which was the Bahamian Sand Dollar, and the latest was Nigeria's e-Naira. Currently, 17 other countries, including major economies like China and South Korea, are in the pilot stage and preparing possible launches. China was the first large economy to pilot a CBDC in April of 2020, and it aims for widespread domestic use of the Chinese yuan by 2022. Around 40 countries have announced they are in a research phase, along with the Bank of England. This includes other major central banks, including the European Central Bank, ECB, and the United States Federal Reserve. In July 2021, The ECB announced a 24-month investigation phase for the digital euro project, which is exploring a potential of both a retail and wholesale CBDC. The Federal Reserve is preparing to publish a review of the case for introducing a CBDC. The Bank of England is collaborating with 6 other central banks, together with the Bank for International Settlements, on CBDC design. On the 14th of October, 2021, the government published a G7 report setting out principles that should govern the development of central bank digital currencies. The case for introducing a central bank digital currency differs around the world to reflect the prevailing economic circumstances and the efficiency of national payment systems. In March 2020, the Bank of England published a consultation which set out 7 ways in which a central bank digital currency could support the bank's objectives to maintain monetary and financial stability. 1 of 7. Supporting a resilient payments landscape. 2. Avoiding the risks of new forms of private money creation. 3. Supporting competition, efficiency, and innovation in payments. 4. Meeting future payment needs in a digital economy. 5. Improving the availability and usability of central bank money. 6. Addressing the consequences of a declining cash. And 7. As an enabler for better cross-border payments. The rapid pace of technological change is driving central banks' interest in CBDCs. The past decade has seen a dramatic increase in new forms of electric payment, and big tech companies are challenging established banks and payment operators for market share. The use of physical cash is in decline in many countries, and some central banks are worried that this could undermine public confidence in monetary system if individuals are unable to convert commercial bank money into cash, which is a direct claim on the state. Central banks are also increasingly concerned about the confluence of 2 trends: technology companies entering finance and the evolution of new forms of digital money. Central banks have warned that big tech companies may issue their own digital currencies to users of vast networks, which may facilitate rapid and large-scale adoption. Once established, these privately issued digital currencies may enable big tech companies to accrue excessive market power and reshape the payments landscape, and this would affect the functioning of the monetary system. Decentralized cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin are digital assets that can be transferred electronically between users without the involvement of intermediaries or the oversight of central banks and governments. Transactions are usually stored on a decentralized ledger known as a blockchain. A blockchain allows users to confirm transactions without the need for a central clearing authority. In practice, few cryptocurrencies have the properties of a traditional currencies, otherwise known as a fiat currency, such as the ability to act as a means of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account. Instead, cryptocurrencies are often traded as speculative assets, rather than used to make payments for goods and services. This report will use the term crypto asset to describe this technology. Stablecoins are a form of cryptocurrency that are designed to maintain a stable value relative to the national currency or another asset. In other words, their market value is pegged to a currency such as the US dollar, as opposed to cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, which are often traded as speculative assets. Stablecoins are designed to reduce volatility and can be used to more easily purchase goods and services. Stablecoins are sometimes said to bridge the gap between cryptocurrencies and volatility-free fiat currencies, and are becoming a more popular way to store value and trade goods in the digital domain. Examples of stablecoins include Tether and USD Coin, or USDC, which are 2 of the largest stablecoins in the market as of December 2021. In June of 2019, Facebook had announced plans to launch a digital currency called Libra. The digital currency would have been pegged to a basket of financial assets, including national currencies. The project was criticized by governments and central banks around the world. On the 2nd of November 2021, the Honorable Rishi Sunak, Member of Parliament, Chancellor of the Exchequer, told us that Facebook's Libra project prompted the government to ask the following. What do we think about a global stablecoin that we are not in control of? What does that mean? How should we regulate that? Do we have to worry about financial stability? This is probably what has catalyzed work on CBDCs. In December 2020, Libra was rebranded as DM, and its ambitions were scaled down. Nevertheless, in December 2020, Olaf Scholz, then Germany's financial minister, said DM was still a wolf in sheep's clothing. Regulators continue to be concerned about the effects of big tech and new forms of payments on monetary sovereignty. While the Joint Task Force has set out potential benefits of central bank digital currencies, there are significant risks to this as well. We heard that CBDCs have the potential to provide the government and the central bank with the power to monitor citizens' payment transactions, posing risks to individual privacy. If a retail CBDC proved to be popular, people may transfer money out of their bank accounts into CBDC wallets, which are software used for digital storage. This could disintermediate the banking sector. This could increase the cost of credit and exacerbate financial instability during periods of economic stress. Central bank digital currencies could provide central banks with powerful new monetary policy tools with uncertain effects that may increase the role and influence of the central bank over the economy. We heard that CBDCs could represent a vulnerable single point of failure in the payment system, serving as a target for cyber attacks from criminals and hostile nation-state actors. The extent to which any of these risks would be realized depends heavily on the final design of a CBDC. Next steps. Her Majesty's Treasury and the Bank of England, also known as the Joint Task Force, will publish a consultation in 2022 setting out their assessment of the case for introducing a central bank digital currency in the UK. If there is a decision to proceed, the Joint Task Force will initiate a development phase, then a build and testing phase. The earliest date for a launch of a UK CBDC would be sometime after 2025. Parliament's role in the introduction of any central bank digital currency is unclear. John Clenn, Member of Parliament, the Economic Secretary to the Treasury, said if the government decides to introduce a CBDC, it is likely that Parliament would have some role in approving the decision. But he was not able to provide certainty on this point or explain whether it would be through legislation or some other means. Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, understood it was possible to introduce central bank digital currencies without legislation, but nevertheless, legislation would probably be needed to ensure the system was legally robust. Digitalization is transforming payment systems, and governments must consider what responses are necessary. Any United Kingdom central bank digital currency would have far-reaching consequences for households, businesses, and the monetary system for decades to come. Parliamentary scrutiny would need to be an essential part of assessing the case for a central bank digital currency, and if the government decides to proceed, Parliament should have the opportunity to vote on any final decision, along with the governance arrangements for any such system during the passage of primary legislation. The government should set out the costs of introducing and operating any design that is proposed. The Bank of England has consulted on 7 different ways in which a central bank digital currency, could support the bank's objectives to maintain monetary and financial stability. However, a central bank digital currency cannot be designed to support all 7 objectives equally well, and there are likely to be alternative solutions for enhancing the payment system with fewer risks. When the Joint Task Force publishes the use case for a possible CBDC in 2022, it should set out the most significant long-term problem to which it believes a central bank digital currency may be the answer. Its assessment should compare CBDCs against alternative means of achieving the same aims. This report focuses on assessing the potential benefits of a central bank digital currency, as set out by the Bank of England, and the economic and political risks that we identified during our inquiry. In Chapter 2, we shall assess how a CBDC would benefit households and businesses, what problems it would solve. In Chapter 3, we assess how crypto asset technology is affecting the monetary and payment systems, and like how a central bank digital currency might alter the role and influence of the Bank of England. In Chapter 4, we examine some of the wider international effects of a central bank digital currency and the extent to which it could influence the economic foreign policies of UK allies and strategic competitors. In Chapter 5, we set out our views on the use case of a UK central bank digital currency and recommend next steps for the government and the Bank of England. We thank all those who provided written and oral evidence. We are also grateful for the contributions from the staff and leadership of the Bank of England and Her Majesty's Treasury. A full list of witnesses and authors of written evidence is available in the appendix. That marks the end of the introduction and Chapter 1 of the House of Lords report of session 2021 to 2022. This will be a multi-part audio recording due to the sheer length of the report. This is also done to provide listeners the opportunity to visit different chapters of the report which they have an interest in and digest this information in smaller bite-sized chunks. Tune in next time to the XRP podcast for Chapter 2 of the United Kingdom's House of Lords report on central bank digital currencies, focusing on the implementation and effect of a retail central bank digital currency, where the House of Lords will assess how a central bank digital currency would benefit households and businesses, as well as what problems it would solve. If you'd like to connect with me, Andrew, the XRP Maximalist, or join the XRP podcast, or even just speak to me, you can find me on Twitter at XRP Podcast with 2 P's. As always, this is made with love for and by the XRP community. Thank you and take care.